So it's one thing to hear a campaign talk about the contrast between the two candidates in this presidential election, and it is another thing to actually see it with your own eyes. Take a look at this new ad out today from the Biden campaign.
In the courtroom, we see Donald Trump for who he is. He's been convicted of 34 felonies, found liable for sexual assault, and he committed financial fraud. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's been working, lowering health care costs and making big corporations pay their fair share. This election is between a convicted criminal who's only out for himself and a president who's fighting for your family.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
A courtroom versus the Oval Office, posing for a mugshot versus shaking hands with voters, fighting for himself versus fighting for you. And that's a key line. I think it's a key part of the message. A convicted criminal versus a president. That is the contrast there in that ad. That is the choice. And just over a week from the first debate, the Biden campaign is betting big that aggressively calling that out now will help them shake up this race in the debate. This new ad is part of a $50 million ad buy. It will air across all battleground states starting today. But will we hear more along these lines from the president himself? And will any of it resonate with the audience who really matters, the voters? We will see. But here to talk to me about it is Quinton Fulks, the Biden campaign's principal deputy campaign manager. And he joins me now. Quinton, I know you've got a lot on your plate. Thank you for taking the time. This is a very forceful ad, which is why we want to play it. It's part of a very significant ad buy. So first, let me just start by asking you, I mean, who knows more about the swing states and where things work than you, because that's what you oversee. Where are these states? Which states is this going to play in of those swing states? And can you tell us more about what percentage of that $50 million is going to be towards that ad buy, that ad?
Look, we're talking to voters in a number of states. It's the typical states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Florida. Look, we have to get the message out, and the message is very clear. This election is about somebody who wakes up every single day fighting for the American people, and Donald Trump, who is only in this campaign fighting for himself. He's a convicted felon, as you all just heard in the ad, and he will do anything to hold on to power so that he can continue to run a campaign on revenge and retribution. And we have to make sure that the American voters know that Donald Trump isn't thinking about him, and meanwhile, thinking about them. And meanwhile, President Biden is waking up every single day fighting to lower costs, making corporations pay their fair share, and that is what this election is about.
And that was the core message of the ad, which was a very powerful ad, had the voice of a narrator, which I think was probably a strategic choice. The first presidential debate is just 10 days away. Is the ad a preview? I mean, that tone, that contrast, how the contrast is done, of what we should all expect to hear from President Biden on the stage?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Look, I think President Biden is going to make sure that Donald Trump has to answer for his extreme agenda, answer for why he continues to double down to try to rip away freedoms from the American people, including millions of women across this country who have less freedoms than their ancestors because of Donald Trump and what he has done to this country, and why he continues to throw the middle class under the bus at the expense of wealthy corporations and his wealthy friends. That is what President Biden is going to get on stage and hold Donald Trump accountable for.
I also want to ask you about a statement the Biden campaign put out following comments from a former Trump aide who confirmed that Trump talked about executing Americans. This was a fiery statement. I mean, the statement called out Trump's thirst for violence and said he is completely snapped. And you can't make this stuff up. A lot to respond to. But I was curious because I think a lot of people, Democrats out there, people who are rooting for Biden, cheer for that and think, wow, this is fiery. We want to see this sort of fiery language, this fiery message. Is this kind of the type of language and tone that people should expect from campaign spokespeople and the campaign moving forward?
Look, we're going to continue to make sure that we're calling attention to it. And, you know, some of our statements are a little bit more spicy, but it's what it necessitates. I mean, this is a pattern and an agenda. And that's the whole thing. It's not the fact that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. It's the fact of why he is a convicted felon. He is literally willing to go to whatever lengths possible to hold on to power so that he can continue to try to get his way and run a campaign on revenge and retribution. And we have to make sure that we are calling that out. And so, you know, if at times it necessitates a spicy statement, that is what we're going to do. But at the end of the day, the message is very clear. The contrast in this election is clear. Donald Trump is only in this for himself, and he is doubling down. He is willing to do whatever it takes, including break the law, in order to get what he wants. And we're going to do everything we can to stop it.
He's going to keep giving you stuff to be spicy with, I suspect. So keep being spicy. Before I let you go, I wanted to get your reaction to something Trump told Semaphore in an interview. He was asked how he responds to black voters who call him racist. And this is what he said, and this is a direct quote. "I have so many black friends that if I were a racist, they wouldn't be friends. They would know better than anybody and fast." I mean, I don't know what else to ask you other than your reaction to that statement and what his assessment is of his level of racism, I guess.
I mean, that statement sounds like something a racist would say. I would laugh if the stakes of this election weren't so high, but they are incredibly high. And unfortunately, it's nothing to laugh at. I mean, look at what Donald Trump has done. He has doubled down, calling for the execution of the exonerated five before entering politics, refusing to rent his apartment buildings to African Americans. And then worse, while he was president, leaving more African Americans uninsured, unemployed. That is the only thing that Donald Trump thinks about when it comes to Black America. And so, again, that statement sounds exactly like somebody who is racist would say to try to prove that they're not. And so, but the proof is in the pudding, and we're going to continue to make sure that Black America knows that Donald Trump cares nothing about them, the same that he does not care about the rest of America, and that President Biden is continuing to put in the work to both earn their vote and make their lives better.
Quinn, folks, you got a lot of campaign oversight to be spending your time on. Thank you for spending some time with me tonight. I really appreciate it.